All right, so I'm gonna try to do this in 50 minutes. So I'm gonna record this and put it up. All right, so we've got news site 3. I've forked it, so I'll push up my solution here. I don't know if anyone had this issue. I did, which is why I put this here. So hopefully no one ran into issues getting it to work at all. So I have this cloned. So the first thing I'm gonna have to do is npm install. And I am not at the right level. Okay, so I'm gonna install everything and I can look at the package.json just to see what I'm gonna be installing. The main thing that I'm concerned about is the React Router DOM. So this is React Router DOM 6. So that maybe doesn't matter for you guys, but this is a relatively recent major update. So we should be good here just doing npm install. So I shouldn't need to separately install anything else. Okay, well that's going. Let's take a look here. So the ultimate goal, if we scroll down to the bottom here, success criteria, homepage and article page should utilize article API module. So we're going to be making a module, which is basically just a few functions that we'll use to interact with the, our server or our mock server to fetch data, blah, 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 and then display that data. So basically, before we were getting our data from a JSON file, now we're going to get it from a server. Okay, so npm install, which I'm doing, and then start. So let's see if this is ready to go. Still going. So app.js, I have my router. So I'm using the newer one, browser router routes, and then I have 2 routes right now, / and then articles and article ID. And my API component, which is going to be the main focus here. So these 3 functions, and then the pages, the article page, currently getting everything from this JSON, and the home page, same thing. All right. So I'm going to do npm start. Okay, so that is working now. Let me take a look at Devtools. So you can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff starting to get very busy because I have all these components, but I have the app nav, which is, if you look in the app.js, so the app nav is outside of the browser router. So it's always going to be there. It's not going to be affected by where you go. And let's see. Okay. So first thing we have to do, we'll go through the README. Most of it is kind of background information to help you figure this stuff out. But so when we ran npm start, we look at our package.json file. We have this scripts field or scripts value. And scripts is basically, they're scripts. So these are command line. These are basically aliases for something that you run on the command line. So I could run npm start, which I did, or I could just copy all this stuff and directly run it on the terminal. Same thing. So this is just convenience for basically like naming some command you want to run. So that's running, and when I ran start concurrently, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what any of this stuff is really. but npm run start server, which is this, and then also npm run start client. So I'm both starting the normal React app here with start client, and this, I'm running this command new server. So we don't need to worry about how this works or anything like that. But so just so you know, you are currently running two things, and we can see what's going on there. So here are the articles that we have available to us. So it's a JSON object, it's got title, blah, blah, blah. So the same stuff, but now it's coming from an outside server. Don't need to worry about this. Okay. All right, so we need to build out these three functions, and I should have mentioned, I mentioned it eventually, but the tests don't work. So just write them and then paste them in the browser to make sure they work. And we'll do that. So fetch article by ID, given an article ID, returns an article object with the given ID. Okay. So let's copy the base route here. Actually, we'll take a look here and then we'll see. So that's how we do that. So that's my route. I'm going to go here into the articles API, fetch article by ID. I'm going to do my normal stuff. So this is going to be an asynchronous function. Mark that as async, and make my fetch call. Actually, I'm going to use backticks. And the optional argument here, the thing that can vary is article ID. So I'll throw that in there. And then I will process it. So I could return this now, or return it now, or I can do further processing. It's up to you. Yeah, sorry, await. And also await that. And then I'll turn body. So what does this function return?
Promise?
Yes. It returns a promise. So we'll go ahead. Go to the console. I'm going to paste this in here and fetch article by ID. Article 2. Did it work?
Yep.
How do I know what the article is? I just see promise pending. I want to make sure that I got this article or one particular article.
You need to await the response, right?
Yeah. So this returns a promise, and if I want to see what's inside the promise, I can await it, or I can use .then. But somehow I'm gonna have to, because it's a promise, I can't just look inside it. I have to continue it on, and I can get access to it, but I can't return the value. Need another parenthesis. So here's what I actually get back. So there's the article right there. So I think this worked. All right, so I think that function works. So let's go ahead and write the next one. It should be very similar. So articles by section. So there are a few things I don't like about these challenges. One is this is, you'll never ever see something like this, where you're putting like basically JSON in the URL, but there we go. So we're gonna do the same thing. Backticks, so we'll paste that in. And then this is the section. So where section is whatever this is. So if you got mixed up here, it's kind of a pain with like the quotes and blah, blah, blah. So if you got mixed up here, don't worry, it's not you, it's this bizarre format here. And we're gonna do the same thing. All right, should be good there. So let's test this out, see if it works. Okay, so what did I do wrong?
You have to use async, otherwise it doesn't recognize a wait.
Yeah, so my fetch articles by section function is synchronous, but I'm using await here, so it just won't work. So if I'm going to use await, I have to use async. I'll mark that function. And I'll pass in world, for example. That's convenient. Okay. So fetch articles by section world, and then I'm console logging what I get, and I get a bunch of articles. So that looks good. Let's do the last one here. This is kind of bizarre. So list of articles, filters, arguments optional if no filters are provided, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to get all articles. I don't think there's any use case for this providing filters right now. And if there is, we can take a look at how you would change that. But for now, I'm just going to get all. So that'll just be this guy, basically. So I'm gonna, oh, same mistake again. I gotta mark this async. Paste this into the browser again. And I get a whole bunch of stuff. So that looks right to me. Okay, so I think these functions are working now. So the next thing is to make homepage and article page actually use those. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out this. Yeah, we'll start here with the homepage. Let me just see, is this, yeah, so it's not showing anything. That's good. Components. Actually, I think news is not defined. Okay. Yeah, we'll just do that for now. Okay. All right, so I'm no longer getting this from JSON. I have to get it from an API call, and I want it to be loaded when I want that call to go out when I first load the page. So what's the pattern for this?
Import use state and use effect.
Okay. Okay. So to just someone just tell me in general, what's the process? You don't have to tell me exactly what to type, but what's the basic process here?
So you'll start. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Use the lifestyle function use effects. And within that, you'll be fetching your data.
Okay. Good. So use effect will run when the component first loads. And then what does use effect do?
It runs anytime there's a change to what it's monitoring.
Right. So let's just say that we have use effect. It's going to run when it first loads. So what do we want in this case use effect to do?
Basically, when the component mounts to fetch the data.
Yeah, exactly. So inside of use effect, we're going to make our API call. We're going to make our API call. So we're going to use one of these functions, which we have. We could have just written those functions here, but if we want to reuse them, we just put them all in one place. So we're going to call one of our API functions, and it's going to get some data for us. And then what's going to happen?
Oh, you'll update state.
Yeah, exactly. So use effect will run when the component first mounts. It's going to call an API. It's going to fetch some data from a server. It's going to get that data back. Then we're going to change our state. And then once our state changes, so what is our state going to be?
Articles.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to go from no articles to some articles, right? So that's a change, which means that we're going to put that in state. So we can go ahead and get our state going first. So we'll call it articles. And we know that this is going to be articles. Okay, now we're going to have use effect. And we just want it to run when the component first mounts. So we're going to pass it an empty dependency array. And we need to call one of our API functions. So we're going to have to import those. Oops. Let's see which one we want. We want all of them, I think. So let's try this. /API/ article. Okay, so we're gonna call it. So what is our fetch articles function? What kind of function is it?
Async.
Yes, it's an asynchronous function. So if we want to use it, we're gonna have to, well, once it's in promised land, it's got to stay in promised land. So we're gonna have to work with this inside of another async function. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to wrap this necessarily. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it. That's the pattern we've been using. So get and tools. And I think that's already been processed. So I'll just call this articles. We've already called the whatever .json on this, so this should be still a promise, but it should basically have the information that we need as is. So once we have our articles, we have to change our state. So set articles. And once we change that, then the component will be reloaded and article list will get a bunch of articles. So let's see if this works. Got to call get articles. Okay. I might just have to, let me do.
Do you need to run that get articles outside that function it's defined in?
Am I? Oh, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this. What we got here. Okay, article list has a problem. Let's check our components. I'm not getting anything there. Okay. So I'm going to comment out this for now. At the nav bar. I want to see the home page. So it looks like I have all my articles here in the home page. This is, yeah. So the home page is successfully getting all of the articles and updating the state. There's a problem with article list. So let's go check out what that is. Components, article list. Let's see.
Was this where you had to add the conditional so it doesn't throw an error because it tries to render it before it
Oh,
can't complete
yes.
the API call?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the first time it renders articles, since I haven't passed it anything, it's just undefined. And then in articles, when I pass it down, it's expecting something that can be mapped over. You can't map over undefined, so thank you. So yeah, there's a couple ways we could handle that. I'm going to use a conditional, so if okay, so it looks like this is working now. Check out the components. So the home page rendering article list now has all the articles as props, which is what we want. So that's good. Let's do the same thing for article page. So article page, we can't get that from this JSON. So we're gonna have to do the same thing. So we already have, we have this params hook, use params hook. We have an article index, and we have our state, which is based on news. So we're gonna have to get rid of that. This is not gonna work anymore. So the, I think we're gonna have to do is, let's see. Let's see. What renders article page? Let me go back to app.js. Okay, going to /articles, article ID. So this is basically an individual article. And this is getting, let's see. Okay, so we're gonna have to fetch the individual article, I think. Okay, so if we're gonna do that, okay, so we're gonna use our API again. Instead of fetching all the articles, we're gonna fetch a particular article, fetch article by ID. So I'll go to article list, follow the same pattern. So I'm gonna import the API. API slash all articles. Okay. And once I have that,
Do you want to be doing this on article page?
yes, sorry. So many things, similar names. All right, so sorry about that. So article page will import API slash articles API. And we'll do our use effect. I've already got it imported here. So what we want to do here is call the API. So it's going to be async function. And individual article we want is going to be article ID. And we need to pass it a parameter, which is going to be that ID, which we're actually getting from our params. So if we look at the app.js, the route, so the routing is going to handle extracting this for us, this whatever comes after /articles, which we expect to be an article ID, and then we can grab that using the use params hook. So we have that here, and it's going to be params dot whatever we name it, in this case, article ID. So we're going to fetch article ID and pass it params dot article ID. Not sure if it's actually -1 or not, we'll see. And then we're going to call set state, or sorry, set article. And that will be article. I have to call get article. And this use state, I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. So the article, let's try that. We go to slash article slash something. I didn't get anything. Let's look on the console. Cannot read properties of undefined reading length. So I'm trying to get the length of something. Here's where I'm trying to get the length of something. So it looks like this doesn't exist, or it's not something you can get the length from. So we can take a look at what we're actually getting, the actual result. There's a couple ways to do that. We could console log what we're getting. We could also kind of go into the servers, should be available somewhere. Server models, article.json, there's article.js, something else. Sample articles, okay. So there's an image thing. Let's see. We're expecting an article, so multimedia. So there's nothing called multimedia. I think it's just image. So we'll change this. We'll try that. I have to play around with this a little bit.
I think you got it. You just don't need that index on the second image, that in the URL. Just the image will give you the string.
Looks like it's still complaining about length, though.
Okay. I don't think you need to index the image though. That number 2.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I can just check if the image exists. Let me just do that. Okay, so I've somehow got myself into an infinite loop here. So let me stop this real quick. So what's my problem? I got into an infinite loop.
You got to put some empty brackets on line 19.
Yeah, so I have use effect and the kind of, if you don't include the second parameter, when does use effect get called?
Oh,
Yeah, anytime that there's a re-render. So anytime state changes, anytime, when it's initially rendered, anytime the props change, anytime the state changes. And if you have use effect and it's going to run every time there's an update and you're updating it inside use effect, then you're just going to keep updating because it's going to trigger a new use effect call. So to prevent that infinite loop, we'll say only run on the initial render. And let me restart the server. So it's good to test locally, or at least on something where you're not going to get into trouble. Okay, so /article/2. Image null. Okay. I'm just going to try doing article.image. Walk it all the way back here. Let me check out what's happening in article. Go to my components and article. Article image, props.image. So let's see. So the component renders, use effect runs. I call get article, which should get the correct article. Maybe it's not. I should probably check that first. And then set state with the article. So I'm gonna just comment this out first and then try to look at the state and see if the state is changing correctly. Article page state is empty. So that is not working as expected. So params.article ID. So what is that?
Do you need an await on line 15?
I do. Thank you. So let me just go ahead with this, but yes, that is a problem. Thank you. So I'm gonna refresh this, take a look at the console. So I'm getting the correct parameter, so that part is working. But what's wrong is that article is a promise, right? And I can't just return a promise. I can't treat a promise like any other thing. So now that I'm awaiting the article, this should work, hopefully. I'll look in the state of article page, and I actually have an article now. I've got my article. Let's go back to this. And it looks like that works, at least for 2. Let's try 3. Find one that doesn't have an image, see if it breaks. So that looks like it works too. So that's basically it, I believe. They both. So we've weaned ourselves off the JSON, and yeah. Okay, so are there any questions about that?
So when I imported my functions, I just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall. I ended up removing default from
Yeah.
the actual functions.
Mhm.
But what you did was you brought them in as just a different container and then access them within that container.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you should be able to do, I think you just do this, or like maybe even module.exports.
Yeah, I just got them out and then I referenced them by name. I referenced them by name in curly brackets, and that's how I was able to get it, because I was stuck on that for a while.
Yeah, you can play around with that. Yeah, there's like several ways to do this in JavaScript, so I don't know the details, but I could look it up. So how did you do it to where you get access?
So I removed default, so then I could import them all by name. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I guess the presence of default means that it's its own little package, and you have to take the whole thing and
Yeah,
pick from there. You can't cherry pick when you export the whole thing as a package.
yeah. Any questions about using the fetch API or this basic pattern for when you fetch something and how you update the component.